So first of all, I want to just say thank you again to Sharon. I feel like that's going to be everyone's opening speech. Thank you again to Sharon for pulling this together. And just as an event organizer myself, but in the medical space, we're always wondering who's going to show up. And numbers matter, and the coffee being, and all the things matter. But Sharon has just stayed so faithful through all of it. Because at the end of the day, what she knows as a woman on fire is that it doesn't matter how many, if it was just one person talking to one person, and God wanted you to be the person listening or you to be the person speaking, that's what matters. So I love that all of you decided to come here today and give your time to this because you're investing in yourself. My talk is about being real. By the way, I left my phone somewhere, so maybe I'm going to ask my sister, give me like a this when I have about 2 minutes left. So I have a 20-minute talk, right, Sharon? I'm good for 20. Okay, give or take. Okay, so I did an entire, foam boards with words, and I had all these things planned, and last night, I said, I don't know if that's really real. To be giving a talk on being real and being vulnerable and being able to speak in your power because you know, honor, love, and respect who you are, shouldn't you be able to just talk? Shouldn't you be able to just go up there and not follow a 5-point how to be real? And so the night before, my sister and I were talking, and my sister has been doing a lot of coaching and therapy and all of these other things. And she said this one thing that made me kind of say last night, forget all the other stuff. She said, I've been trying so hard to show up and to speak like other people expect me to. In her work environment, with her friends, with her husband, with all different things like this. And I thought to myself, who's setting those expectations? How do you know how the other person expects you to be showing up? Do you interview them to say, how would you like me to speak to you today? But I think we do that. We're if I'm going to go up and talk at a women's Christian conference, this is how I need to show up. This is what I need to have prepared. But as we heard both from Sharon and Amy, you've been given everything you need. So to think about what other people require or expect or whatever from you, now you're just shifting yourself, taking away from how God's designed you to be, in order for you to accommodate what you think, by the way, not what they said, but what you think that person expects from you. And I think as women, especially from small, that's what we do. We let boys play, get dirty, get rowdy. You ever hear oh, that's just a boy. He's a boy. But with girls, it's you're supposed to be buttoned up, pretty, hair in place. Even on the playground, you got those little frilly socks. I'm giving my age, which, by the way, I want to say my bio is from 2 years ago. Once she said, oh, the 45-year-old. I'm okay, well, I'm 47, but I'll take 45. But think about it. When we were little, the same playground, but we had the little frilly socks. Remember those? You rolled them down and the little frill around, your little Mary Janes. But we wanted to be on the playground with the boys. We're designed to be like that too, but someone put a different expectation on us that we were supposed to be in some way holding back what the Spirit was calling us to do, what we were designed to do naturally. So I threw away all of that stuff, and I actually ended up with 2 points on a card. I thought, how could I really do this? 2 points on a card. The weight of expectations, realness as freedom, and the Bible story that I want to go through. So at the end of this, in your imaginary surveys, you'll say she should have done the foam boards because that sounded better. But my hope is that the realness will come through. So as I was listening to my bio as well, I thought, what a perfect example of expectations, because the role, the title that I have, founder and CEO, requires for all of my accomplishments to be listed first in an introduction, and then in the end say, she's mom to 2 boys and likes to travel with her husband. I'm mom to 2 boys and likes to travel with my husband first. And all the rest of those things are like, okay, who cares? In different audiences, people are going to care about that differently. But I thought, like, who said that? Who said that in a bio, where you went to school, what you do for a living, how you impact the global field of cancer, and then somewhere on the bottom line, if there's room for it, I teach Bible study and I like to travel with my husband. So that's something right away I'm going to start flipping in all the things that I do. Because at the end of the day, being real is my goal. Not because I'm a feminist and I want to be enough, but because God designed me uniquely. One of our speakers said, I think it was Sharon, who said, all of our hair is different, our teeth is different, our fingerprints are different. So why does our bio need to line up a certain way? Why do our talks have to have the same structure? Introduction, build up, takeaway. Why not just show up who you are? And why does it matter? Because people like my sister, there's another person who is a student of my Bible study, and the other day when we were doing a prayer request call, she said, she just broke down. She said, I can't do it all. I can't do this all anymore. And, you know, we're all writing down, okay, can't do it all. Like, who put it all on your plate? You put it all on your plate. You know, you go to a buffet and then you get everything, you get back to the table, you say, my gosh, I thought I was just taking a little bit of everything, but now I have this mountain of food. And then you think, if you eat the whole plate, how do you feel after? You're sick. You're like, I overdid it. I overindulged. I bit off more than I could chew. Why not just say, well, wait a minute, can I get another plate and shift whatever you didn't want off of it? Say, does somebody else want this? Because I don't want it. It wasn't mine to take. I thought when I was picking it up that the little bits would all be fine, and then here I am faced with a overwhelming plate. And what that translates into, Sharon does a lot of coaching work with my company, is when you have too much to do, you don't do anything well. So, like, what are we doing? We're setting an expectation based on other people. We're taking on more than we've been designed or asked to do. We're not adjusting that based on our spirit of excellence. And then when we fail, inevitably, we're in Bible study saying, I can't do it all, in tears. Who is responsible for that? I would argue it's the real woman. I would argue it's each of us. Because at any given time point, you had the power to adjust. You had the power to sit with the Spirit and say, no. Not to the Spirit, but in a way that says, Spirit, help me to readjust. Help me to prioritize. Help me to say, these are the things you called me to do, and these are the things that I didn't even want to do. Never mind, I want to do, but it's too much. I didn't even want to do. Help me to adjust. And that takes not just courage, strong communication. You got to be able to stand before people and say, I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I'm giving it back to you. I need this to be delegated to someone else. And frankly, this doesn't fit who I am. I was listening to a podcast this morning when I was getting ready. The guy says 57% of this generation as a career aspiration want to be an influencer. So when I think about it, I'm not quite as crazy as Amy, but I have a 28-year-old stepdaughter, a 21-year-old who's right here in my front, my Isaac, and then a 10-year-old. So a little bit getting to Amy's craziness, but not all the way. But I think to myself, if Isaac and Joseph, my two boys, in their own ways, that is their career aspirations. And I say, what did I do differently than my parents and my parents' parents to give the impression that being an influencer without ever accomplishing anything and without even understanding yet who God designed you to be, what did I not equip you with that you realize who are you trying to influence? What are you influencing with? And why would anyone care about what you're saying if God didn't first put it in you? And I feel like when you think about these generations, I know we're going to have a great talk on these generations, it is our responsibility as women of God to look at our children when they come to us with these, I'm starting a whatever page, Insta page, TikTok page, whatever it is, to say, Isaac, what are you doing? Because, listen, that's the work of the devil. The work of the devil is to tell our kids, your value is in the likes and follows, because it's a distraction from them pursuing from God and the Holy Spirit, what did you put me here to do? Because it's not, I put my hand up on my hip. It's not that. It's not that in any way. Fun has become this new gold standard of purpose. So I want to say, when we think about that, the weight of expectations, what are we doing to change the narrative for ourselves, for our children? Ask yourself that, really. I want to read from 1 Samuel 17, the story of David when he decided he's going to take on Goliath. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul, who was king. By the way, David at this time was maybe 14, 15 years old. I want to also put in perspective, they call Goliath the giant. People think Goliath was like probably 8, 9 feet tall. The king was 7 feet tall. David, a 14-year-old shepherd boy, was not the one. Why didn't King Saul say, okay, size and might were pretty evenly matched. Position, I'm definitely a man of more authority. I believe it's because somewhere along Saul's life, he didn't understand what was real. That something became like overpowering in him that he would call to people, who's going to fight this Philistine? So Saul says, you're not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You're only a young man, and he's been a warrior from his youth. So right away Saul said to David, you can't. Then David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he's defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. So right away, think about it. Young David says, yeah, I can. Something else. Young David knew he could because God had put in him a spirit of acknowledgement and understanding about who he was. So I'm sure David was scared when he went up against the lion and the bear, but he knew he was doing it as part of his calling to be a keeper of the sheep. Think about the contrast of that between our generation of 57% want to become an influencer. That is our future leaders. That's the future leaders of the church. When you look at big mega churches, so much of even their ministry is social media ministry. Clips, likes, follows. You have amazing pastors going on stage and criticize because they're wearing a $2,000 sweater. They're wearing this, they're wearing that. We're losing ourselves. We're losing ourselves. Saul says to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Not even like an acknowledgement of where David's courage and confidence was coming from. This is where I want us to listen, girls. Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic, in Saul's tunic. Remember I said, Saul's 7 feet tall and the king. David is 14, 15 years old. He put on a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried to walk around because he wasn't used to them. "I can't go in these," he said to Saul, "because I'm not used to them." So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones, put them in the pouch of his bag, and with a sling in his hand approached the Philistine. I want to tell you something. David said, "This isn't mine to wear." What are you wearing? What are we all wearing? Figuratively and literally. What are we wearing that someone else said it's the thing to wear, it's the way to look, it's how to sound? Going back to my sister saying, I have to learn how to speak, thinking about how other people are receiving it. Who said that? Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. How many people hate you because of how you look, because of how you show up in your authentic self? Because they don't understand it. They feel that they're dressing up for the world, and when they show up and they see you dressed up for God, dressed up in your own power, in your own gifting, in your own anointing, for your own unique purpose, they hate you for that. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David and his gods. "Come here, and I'll give you the flesh. I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." So now Saul told him he can't, and now Goliath told him he can't. David says, "You come against me with sword and spear and a javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." He didn't say, "I come against you with my stones and sling," because that's my weapon. No. His weapon was, "I come against you in the name of the Lord, who you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands." Think of this. A little boy is saying this. "This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I'll give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals. For the battle is the Lord's." As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David quickly ran towards the battle line to meet him, reaching into his bag, taking out a stone, slings it, strikes him in the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell face down. David triumphed over the Philistine. Had David walked up to that Philistine with the army of Saul because somebody else told him how he should look, what he should wear, this story wouldn't have ended this way. David was able to defeat Goliath because, as we've heard from our first 2 speakers, everything we need, God has equipped us with. I want all of us, the takeaway from my talk this year, to be liberate yourselves. Any area of your life that you're saying, who do I need to be? Ask yourself the second question. Who told me? What standard am I trying to fit? Whose clothes am I trying to wear? What words of other people am I trying to project? And instead, ask yourself, God, who have you designed me to be? And as Amy reminded us, that surrender is not hands closed. That surrender is going to take a lot of courage and is going to end with a story that includes suffering and sacrifice. Don't get it twisted that being real is going to free you from all of the burdens that we all have as humans. Jesus promised us those burdens, but he said, fear not, I'm with you. I've overcome those burdens. But he's calling us to be real. It's the only way we defeat the giants in our life. I pray over this whole congregation, delegation of women here today, that you eat these words and that you speak them over your children. We were not designed to be the influencers that these 57% of kids want to be. We were designed to be salt. That is the influence we were designed to bring to this broken and falling world. So I leave you with the story of David. I leave you with asking you to liberate yourself from the expectations of others. And if you feel like our sweet sister in Bible study, I just can't, I need you guys to pray because I just can't do it all. Look at your buffet plate, because no one except you asked you to do that all. That's how I will leave you, girls.